Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Inside Nebraska Podcast. This is Zach Carpenter, the publisher of Inside Nebraska. And on this edition of the show, we are welcoming on Rivals National Recruiting Analyst Clint Cosgrove to provide some insight on new 2023 defensive tackle commitment, Riley Van Poppel, and plenty of other guys. We're talking about receiver recruiting, big picture stuff for the Huskers during a busy month. So without further ado, we're going to welcome on Clint to the show now. All right, Clint Cosgrove, welcome on, man. Take three. Sometimes the best picture Oscar winners, the directors had to do multiple takes. This is our third go around, but this is gonna be the best one. I'm feeling this. Like, aren't you? Like, this is gonna be the money one.
Yeah, I feel like third time's the charm, and I'm just excited to be on and talk some Nebraska ball, some Nebraska recruiting, relive the old glamour days of my time in Lincoln. So yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about it. And I feel like between internet connections, tornadoes, and other things out of our control, the third time will be the best.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of powering through rain, sleet, or shine, snow, whatever the USPS phrase is. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean, you're coming on to kind of talk some Nebraska recruiting. It's a really interesting time. Recruiting's kind of fun again in Nebraska with the revamped recruiting strategy under Vince Ginta, and I wanted to get you on to talk about that and the bigger picture stuff. But I didn't want to bury the lead here because Nebraska, they landed a commitment on Monday for their 8th total commitment in the 23 class, and second defensive commitment, first defensive line commitment, and a 3-star defensive tackle in Riley Van Poppel. And wanted to get an analyst perspective of his film and what you saw, because I mean, I had my thoughts on him, but I kind of want to tee you up. And so after like grinding through his film and everything, what did you see from him as far as what he brings to the table, maybe what he needs to work on?
Well, let me start by telling you that I'm extremely biased by the Van Poppel last name because I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin when my dad was the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin. And Todd Van Poppel was one of the top MLB prospects of all time. And he played for the Madison Muskies. So anytime he pitched, I would go out for the game. So I'm very familiar with the Van Poppel name. I've been a big fan of the family since. Moving on to, Riley.
Were you just trying to say that, try to get his autograph?
No, I already have it actually.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I have an autographed mitt or bat from back in the day. Oh yeah, wouldn't miss a Todd Van Poppel pitching day. But when you look at Riley, one of the things that you think about is obviously the genetics. I mean, genetics play a big role in who you're going to be as a football player, and he has that in his favor. I mean, when you talk about, and his dad was literally one of the top baseball prospects of all time. When you talk about that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of, genetic athleticism in the family. I have not seen him in person. Unfortunately, he did not make it to the Dallas Rivals Camp Series event. I believe he was supposed to, but something came up. So my evaluation is based off what I've heard in our rankings meetings and what I've seen on film. And I know he got a big bump in this past rankings. I believe he was like a 5.5 3-star, and he got bumped to, I believe he's now a 5.7 3-star. The first thing that you see when you turn on the film is he's a high motor guy. He is a guy who will make the most out of his talent. Doesn't matter if the play is far away from him, close to him. He's going like his hair is on fire, chasing the ball. He's great in pursuit. The second thing that I really love about him, and it might actually be his best attribute, is he is explosive off the ball. His first step is incredible. He fires off the ball. You can tell that he's pretty smart. He gets the snap count down. So sometimes he's in the backfield before the offensive linemen even move. And like I said, his motor, he's great at chasing down the ball. He can sack the quarterback. He plays violent. He plays with his hands. I don't know. And he's grown a lot in the last couple of years. So sometimes when you're used to seeing a guy when he's younger and running around like they're, an outside linebacker versus when they get to 260, 270 pounds, you're going to lose some of that speed, but for his size, he runs very well. And like I said, his pursuit is great. The one thing that I would say when watching the film that he would need to work on the most is probably his overall bend. He gets in a great stance. He shows he can bend. He has the ability to bend. But sometimes once he makes that initial step, throws his hands, gets through the line, he tends to play a little high. But that's something that can be coached out of him because I don't think it's lack of ability. It's just him being raw and him getting used to his body. I mean, the amount of growth he's had over the past couple of years is pretty impressive. And for him to still move the way he does, you got to love that. Also love his versatility. He could line up as a nose, a 3, a 4-eye, a 5, a 7. Like you can put him all over the place. In the day of kind of where offenses are right now, at least, and you try to be as positionless on defense as possible so you can kind of disguise your personnel, your packages, and I think he brings that to the table. So, when you talk about a defensive line commit, from Texas playing a high level of football, you got to be excited about that. There's a lot he brings to the table. I think he has tremendous upside. I think he's just unlike a lot of Texas prospects who max out young just because they've been coached so well from a young age. I think he's just scratching the surface, and he's going to be a very good player.
Yeah, and like you touched on there, the Nebraska defense is kind of shifting its philosophy a little bit and trying to continue to change up their looks, their defensive fronts. I mean, just to add another element that opposing offenses have to prepare for. And that's kind of like you said, that's what I wrote up in the analysis, was that he's this guy, he could be a defensive end in a 3-4 scheme, defensive tackle, like a 3-tech in a 4-3 scheme. And like you said, I wrote that he's not like that super bendy, like just like long athletic, tall, long athletic, like defensive end, like a couple of the other guys that they're targeting in this class, but he has that versatility piece to where it's just that extra step that they're taking to try to revamp this defense and this defensive line and compete against not just the running teams like Wisconsin and Iowa, but also try to go up against the bad boy passing offenses like Ohio State and like a Purdue air raid that we saw last year under Aiden O'Connell. It's not like you mentioned the level of competition. He's not playing Little Sisters of the Poor. I mean, he's in the fourth highest division in Texas, and as far as his trending goes, to be a potential 4-star, because he's right on the cusp of it. He's going to get every opportunity to do it because his high school is moving up a division into the 3rd highest level in Texas, and that's, I mean, we're starting to talk about big boy football really when we're talking about how his senior year he'll have every opportunity afforded to him. And one other like last question, you talked about the motor. I mean, just kind of curious, like when you guys were recruiting defensive linemen, was the motor like the number one thing that you guys would look for? Because it's kind of like the number one thing you can't teach, right?
Yeah, you can't teach it. You can try to coach it, but it really has to be intrinsic at the end of the day. You can get a kid to play hard for a number of plays through motivating them, but at the end of the day, that's an intrinsic trait. You have to want to go hard, and it has to be built in you. So there are some players that I've seen go from lazy to high motor just because they found that desire, but that is not a trait. It's almost like QB accuracy. Like you don't see a lot of quarterbacks all of a sudden become accurate when they get to the next level, even though they have a strong arm, good mechanics, whatever it may be. I think a motor's very similar to that. There are some players that maybe weren't coached up, weren't motivated, weren't desperate to have a high motor. And so sometimes that does happen. But when you see a kid like him with a natural high motor, you absolutely love it because he's going to give you a chance. Back when I coached, we would make up cut-ups, and it didn't have to be our team. Sometimes it would be our team. It would be other teams where we would show a play that made a difference in a game between a win and a loss based off the motor of a player, somebody giving up on a play. And you would be shocked to know how often it happens where a team will lose a game because a guy on the other side of the field who could have had an angle and stopped a player from scoring or stopped a player from making a big play. They just kind of watched it and then realized, oh, I could maybe get him, and they start going. And so just having an intrinsic motor is a huge thing to me. It's not something that's often taught. It is motivated, but it has to be within you.
Yep, and that's what Mike Dawson now gets in his defensive line room with the 8th commitment in the 23 class with Riley Van Poppel. And they look right now like they could be trending toward a 9th commitment in the class a couple weeks from now. I wrote about Barry Jackson, the 2023 receiver out of Cedar Grove in Georgia. Wrote about him today. I placed a future cast prediction for Nebraska to land him.
Ooh.
I'm just calling my shot there, Clint. You know, that's how we do it in this business. I know you call shots.
Got to put it out there.
I haven't looked at your winning percentage on predictions, but I'm just going to pretend that it's really high for now. Accuracy.
It's decent. It could be better. Because I do the commitment interviews, I've been hesitant to make a lot of them. I think I'm like, I don't know, 14 of 16 or 15 of 17. But usually when I do a commitment interview with a kid, that's part of the deal that I will not make a future cast because I do not want to ruin their moment. And I do a lot of those. So, I don't know. I do an okay job at it, I guess.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. Like I've done the commitment interviews too. And like I've had a prospect tell me that he was committing before he even told the coaching staff. And it's like, man, like you would be the first one to report this, but it sucks because like when you promise kids something, when you say, no, I'm not going to spoil it for you, then, it's more important to be true to your word than to be the first to report it. So, but your boy over here is 100% right now, 100% on the accuracy. I don't make a lot of them though. I think I'm like 9 for 9 right now. I'm feeling pretty good about a few of them. So,
hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Barry's one I'm feeling pretty confident on right now. It looks like he's going to be announcing his commitment June 30th, and he's pretty much down to Nebraska and Memphis. Louisville, he was supposed to have an official visit there this coming weekend, but he canceled that. And he took his Nebraska official visit June 3rd through 5th. He has a Memphis one set up for June 24th and 26th. Also mentioned Pitt and Mississippi State as a couple he's considering, but it is appearing to shaping up to be Nebraska versus Memphis. And I'm not going to bet against Mickey Joseph at this point to be able to land Barry. And just looking at him on the film, I know we were talking about like some of his track speeds and stuff like that. What did you notice from him? He's a 5'11", 175-pound receiver. I know one of the things that Mickey Joseph has been really emphasizing is guys who can play multiple spots. Like he can be used on the outside in the slot. And I think that's something that Jackson brings to the table. But what did you see out of him when you were watching him?
Yeah, and actually he looks bigger than 175 on film, or 5'11", 175. I could be wrong. It depends where you're playing and what the caliber of the cameras are. It can change a lot in terms of what the film looks like. But what I see from him is a kid who has great football speed and great body control. catches the ball naturally, and even though he only runs, and I don't mean to say only, an 11, 1.8, and 100, which is actually pretty good, but it's not elite speed. But when you put on the film, he runs away from people and he's faster than those he's going against. And there's just some people who are faster in pads for some reason. I don't know if it's the competitive nature. You know, we know he's playing against good competition in Georgia. I mean, Georgia is some of the best football there is. You know, so I'm impressed by his game speed. You know, and really his cutting ability, his vision. You see him on returns. You see him take short throws to the house. His ability to make plays in the open space. You know, so there's a lot to like about him. Like I said, the biggest concern was he's not a Blazer, but he plays faster on the field than he does technically on track. You know, he has great body control. He's got great burst. He runs great routes. And you talk about, again, position versatility. He can line up on the outside. He can line up in the slot. I wouldn't put it past him to run, you know, line up at running back, and whether it be to, you know, catch a screen pass, do a swing route. You know, he brings a lot to the table. There was enough on film for me to get excited about him. Do I think he's an Alabama take or anything like that? Probably not. But he does have a skill set to be a very good player. And the thing I like about him is he's pretty polished right now. You know, body control, people talk about it, and a lot of people are like, what does body control mean? It's very important at the receiver position because he can adjust to balls in the air. He can snap off routes. He can read coverages. Like, he's going to be in the right place at the right time. And he can catch the hard to catch ball. And those are the things that are big when it comes to having a complete receiver core. Is he going to be a guy who stretches the field every play? Maybe not, but he's going to be a great guy for underneath catches to try to take him the distance. He's great in open space, like I said. And when you're building a receiving core, you want a diverse group, if that makes any sense. You want a guy who can stretch the field. You want a guy who can be versatile. You want a guy who can, you know, do a little bit of everything. And so I see him as that versatile guy. Like I said, I love his football speed. And he's a kid that I would take at Nebraska. And, you know, I think he adds value to their class, definitely, if he were to commit.
Yeah, and that's important to say, if he were to commit, because we're talking about him just like we were Riley, as if he already is a commit. So, I mean, it's a risky, it's a bit of a risky endeavor, I guess, because we'll look like idiots, I guess, in the end if he doesn't. But I know the momentum there is real. And it sort of paints the broader picture of where Nebraska's, even the momentum itself, it sort of just paints a broader picture of where Nebraska's receiver recruiting is under Mickey Joseph. And it's undergoing a revamping itself, just like the defensive line. I mean, they brought in Mickey to be that ace recruiter, and now it's lining up for them to bring in a pretty big receivers haul. I mean, I'm thinking that it's going to be a class of 4, and I could see a scenario where it winds up being a class of 5. Right now they have Jaden Doss, 3-star from Kansas City, committed, and he's sort of that utility man where he was recruited to be outside slot. He could be used in the backfield, like as a running back, or getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage, maybe in like jet sweeps and stuff like that, kick returner, punt returner. And
I'm a big fan of Doss, for the record. I've been on the boards that they sometimes like to make memes of me on, but I've seen people question Doss, and I just want to put it out there that I am a big fan of him, and I think he'll be a very, very good player.
Yeah, well, it would be Jaden Doss, and then there's 2 current future cast predictions for Nebraska receivers, and that's Omarion Miller out of Louisiana, and then the Barry Jackson one I put in today. Omarion Miller is obviously, I think people are pretty well aware of his recruiting story. He was committed to Mickey Joseph and LSU for since August 2021, and then he stayed committed to LSU until May 30th, I believe. And then less than 4 days after he decommitted on May 30th, and less than 4 days later, he took an official visit to Nebraska. And Nebraska surged substantially momentum for Amari in there, and he would be there. I calculated it per the Rivals rankings in the modern era, so pretty much the past 2 decades, he would be their third highest ranked receiver commit. I don't have the names in front of me right now, but
probably Maurice Purifoy, who was a JUCO, and I'm trying to think of who the other would be.
Xavier Betts, I believe, was one of them. I can try and pull up the list. But the point still remains that Jaden Dawson, they have momentum for Amari Miller and Barry Jackson now, and then Joshua Manning is another high target, and they're bringing in guys like Malik Elzy from Chicago, and I think they've got a couple others on the docket. So they're again trending in the right direction, and arguably the most electric skill position in the sport, and they need that influx of receivers if they're going to run the Mark Whipple offense that he wants to run. And the name that we keep not bringing up is another reason I wanted to have you on, and that's Malachi Coleman, because he's the number one most important target in this class, and it seems like he's going to be a receiver. I know from you talking with him, because you've been running point on recruiting coverage with Malachi.
That's my guy. We were just texting earlier tonight. We're going to talk tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's one of those, defensive end or receiver is what everyone keeps saying, like he might play this, he might play that, but it's becoming quite clear, right, that that Mickey Joseph wants him in that receivers room. So what can you kind of tell us about Malachi, his recruitment, just sort of all encompassing there?
Yeah. So I'm going to briefly touch on the other guys, and then I'll get to Malachi. Joshua Manning is a special player. If Nebraska could land him, that would be huge. I've been doing a anonymous coaches survey that will come out at some point. And one of the questions is most underrated player in the 2023 class. And Joshua Manning has been named in that. So he would be a huge get. And then I want to talk about Mickey for a second too. The dude can flat out recruit. He's a good guy. He connects with players. I saw him a couple of weeks ago when he was in Chicago recruiting, and I really think he himself has changed the recruitment of Malachi a little bit. Without giving away too much, because me and Malachi talk off the record a lot. I don't know if I could have seen Malachi end up at Nebraska a few months ago. This past visit and his connection with Mickey really changed a lot. And the fact that they said that they would let him rush the passer on third downs while also being able to play receiver was very intriguing to him. Although Malachi's always been open to playing multiple positions, I think many would be surprised at the position that he would like to play most. And I think, Nebraska giving him that opportunity to play on both sides of the ball with the combination of Mickey Turner, with the combination of the visit that he had, it was hard for him to put in words. It was special. It made a big difference in his recruitment. Now, you still got to deal with Georgia, Alabama, and some of those schools, I think. And that's going to be a tough sell, tough beat. But I would say the Huskers are in it as much as they have ever been. Malachi he's special. He's a special talent. He's one of those guys, you don't know what he's going to end up like. I mean, the kid, his development in the past year, he goes from an 11-second 100 guy to a 10-4. all of a sudden he's trying to get in the 21 threes in the 200, and he's 6'5". And the other day, and we talk about his weight, I was like, you got to put on some weight, Malachi. And he's got big frame. I mean, he can add plenty of weight. He can hold another 30 pounds eventually, but he was, I think, 196 pounds. So he's already getting up there, that's plus 11. He's just a special player that has a dynamic skill set. And he's only going to get better. Like he is just scratching the surface. And what you like most about Malachi is, yes, he's faster than everybody else. He's going to end up bigger than everybody else. He is a Nebraska guy. His parents are Nebraska fans. But for those who don't know his story, his grit factor, and grit is, analytics wise, one of the greatest, one of the greatest indicators of success. Malachi Coleman can overcome any level of adversity. And in college football, adversity will hit you and he won't bat an eye at it. So that says a lot about him. And that goes along with his phenomenal skill set. I mean, there are not guys his size running that speed with his upside, with his rawness that he has right now. There's not a lot of them in the nation. And so Malachi's got a chance to be a very special player. He can play all over the place. He's a team take for Nebraska. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a receiver or a defensive end. You take him no matter what. Doesn't matter what your numbers look like. He's a difference maker. He is a different type of player than they've had come out of the state in recent years. And he's a high character guy. He's the complete package. Now, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. But there's a lot of talent there. But I think he's just scratching the surface as well. And he has as high of upside as maybe anybody in the nation in his class. And I don't say that lightly. Malachi is special. And so you land him. I can't even think about how big that would be for Nebraska. And I think Mickey gives him a chance.
Yeah, we saw him. I know you're pounding the table for him to be a 5-star, and didn't get quite there, but he jumped like a billion spots in the rankings up to I think number 54 overall, and
it was
a high
insane.
4-star.
And you know what? Like when we went into rankings meetings, and I had him on the sheet, and people are like, "You sure this guy just went from outside? I think he was outside the 250 to number 54 in the nation." And I said, listen, he's 6'5". You guys know his story. He runs a 10-400, 21-3. Like, you just don't find players like that. And he's just scratching the surface.
Just seeing the highlight videos and stuff from his time at Nebraska camps this summer. Adding the size, and then he just looks like a monster out there. He looks like a Marvin Harrison Jr. type who's he's on a star trend over at Ohio State. That's who he kind of reminded me of a little bit, just with the size, the height, the length, and everything. And he's dominating. And I'm curious. You were kind of talking about it there. Can you remember in your time either with Nebraska or covering them where there was a more, I guess maybe this would be recent, would be better to ask is, can you remember a time where there's a more important in-state recruit for Nebraska to get?
I'd be talking out of place if I said there wasn't. But I just know from my time there, and from my time as an analyst, and from my time Nebraska was a client of mine in scouting, I can't remember too many players that are in a similar class that he is from Nebraska. Now you have great offensive linemen. You've had some skilled players, linebackers, defensive linemen that have come out of Nebraska, but he's different. He's different. He brings something different to the table. And like I said, there's no guarantees with him or anybody else. But it's easy for me to bet on his success just because of his natural ability. He's relatively new to football. Like, you watch his film from the beginning of the year to the end, and then his development in track from last year to this year. Like, you just don't get athletes like that in many states. And Nebraska isn't exactly known for producing the world's top athletes and skill players. They do have some special guys right now, like Benny, and is a 6'4" high jumper. They've got the 2024 kid who's a 7-foot high jumper who runs, low 11s in the 100, and he's a tight end. There's some athletes there, but Malachi's just different. He's different mentality, different upside, different athleticism, different size. He has everything that it takes, and he could be the type of guy who can change a program.
Yeah, and I know recruiting can be kind of a niche thing to cover and to follow, and not everybody out there is like a gung ho about following recruiting, whether it's Nebraska or college football in general. But if you're a Nebraska fan and there's one recruitment you're going to follow the rest of this cycle, it needs to be Malachi Coleman. It will be, because he is the number one target. He's the one that we're going to be writing about and covering the most at Inside Nebraska throughout all the way up until the day he signs, and then if he signs with Nebraska, throughout his entire career with the Huskers. Clint, I had some more stuff, but we're running long, and also I kind of want to at the end of the month, once all these official visits are done, kind of like bring you back on and kind of just do an overarching view of everything, because they've Vince Ginta, the senior director of player personnel, and his staff over there, Sean Dillon. Yeah, your boy over there.
Yeah, my old roommate, Vince Ginta. We were on staff at the same time. We lived together. So
yeah, and he's appearing to be the right man for the job. and this is what I want to talk about in a couple of weeks when we have you back on. It just seems like his strategies that he's implementing, some of the same stuff he did at Oregon State and Baylor, is just it's a different strategy. And I think Nebraska needed to switch up, and it's paying off so far. Their first 3 official visits weekends, the first one in May, or the one in May, first one in June, and the second one in June, they've landed a commitment directly out of those. With Jaden Doss, he silently committed to the staff exactly 1 week after his official visit wrapped up. Brock Knudsen, he committed less than 24 hours after his visit was over, and Riley Van Poppel today. So that kind of brings it back full circle. We'll see if they'll be able to go 4 for 4 on commitments coming out of an official visit this weekend. It's going to be another big one with, I think, at least 10 official visitors confirmed, but we'll have coverage of that on Inside Nebraska, and we'll have Clint back on here in a week or two to sort of recap things. So Clint, really appreciate you coming on today and sharing a lot of insight about some of these guys.
No, thank you. And sorry for being long-winded, but obviously I have strong opinions on a couple of the guys, and the strategy that Vince has implemented, and he's been around some great people that he's worked with, and I think there's been a lot of synergy with him and Coach Frost, and the way they've approached this, and Nebraska is definitely trending in the right direction when it comes to recruiting. So that's an exciting thing.
Yep, and it'll be fun to see how it's all shaping up when the dust settles, because this was one of the most pivotal recruiting stretches of the last several years for Nebraska, and they brought in the right guys, it seems, and at a pivotal time, and it's paying off so far. We'll see how it goes from here. So that is Clint Cosgrove, the national recruiting analyst for Rivals. I'm Zach Carpenter, publisher at Inside Nebraska, and thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon.